Vickers Tactical Channel. Today I got for you here the most successful failure in military small arms history, the ArmaLite AR18. The gun itself, largely a failure, but the amount of weapons that is influenced after it was introduced is unbelievable. From that point of view, definitely a success. Came from ArmaLite, which was the small arms division of Fairchild. You may recognize them as having developed the AR15, which they later sold to Colt. Now, Colt had the direct impingement gas system, essentially had that design all locked up when they bought the rights from ArmaLite, so ArmaLite had to go in a different direction. Late 1950s, early 1960s and whatnot, they developed a fairly simple gun, the AR-16 in 7.62 NATO. Later on, they decided to scale it down to the AR-18 in 223, later known as 5.56, and this is what you see. Most of the time when you see these guns on the market, they're semi-automatic only AR-180s. They were made by ArmaLite in Costa Mesa. They were also made by Howa in Japan. They were also made by Sterling in England. Like I said, you will see our AR-18s out there, fully automatic select fire variants, but most of them by far are semi-automatic. And if you still shop around, you can generally find the Sterling-made semi-automatic AR-18s relatively reasonably priced. A lot of stamped sheet metal on this gun, both upper and lower. Pretty simple gun, simple to fabricate, and a lot of little innovative design features, although the reality is, in actual use, not very practical. For instance, folding buttstock has an interesting hinge, but it's not very durable. You see this little bracket right here, it indexes on the spigot to lock it into place. Also, the magazine looks like it might be interchangeable with the M16, essentially the same envelope, but it's not interchangeable without modification. The mag catch notch is on this side, not on this side like it is with an M16. As a matter of fact, this is a modified 20-round M16 magazine. You have to grind off the hump in order to be able to insert it into the mag and make sure you have a notch in the magazine to lock it into place. So even though the envelope is essentially the same, it is not reverse compatible with an M16. Kind of a ding on the design in that regard. Bolt hold open device is active. However, to release it, there's no external bolt hold open release like there is on an M16 on the left-hand side of the receiver. You have to reach up the charging handle, pull it slightly to the rear, and let it go. Innovative recoil spring assembly copied after the M3 grease gun. Dual recoil spring assembly comes through the rear, also acts as a retainer for the upper handguard. Gas system is copied from the SVT-40 or the German G43, very widely copied throughout the small arms industry. A variation in the HK-G36, also variation in the HK-416. LWRC uses essentially a direct copy of it. Countless guns. The Magpul Masada, which became later the Bushmaster ACR, essentially uses the same gas system. The gun that copied this more than any other, including the ejection port cover and the magazine release, the British SA-80 bullpup. The Brits essentially took this, turned it into a bullpup, and you had the SA-80. That gun has a real spotty record. It has been since re-engineered and reproduced by HK. It is a much better gun, but they took certainly all the fleas that the AR-18 might have had and carried them over and added some of their own fleas to that particular British bullpup. Now, fairly lightweight handy gun. Interestingly enough, if you check out my videos from SHOT Show 2019, Brownells introduced an upper receiver, the BRN-180, which is essentially the AR-18 or AR-180 semi-auto upper that you can put on an AR-15 lower. They put a lot of time and effort into that upper, and as far as I know, it's selling very well. Sights, pretty simple, post front, flip aperture rear. You see the protective wings. Very similar to other assault rifles you see on the market. All right, let me take a minute here, bust this thing down. I'm gonna take you through some of the details and differences between a weapon like this and your standard AR-15. All right, got this thing field stripped real quick. As you can see, the dual recoil spring guides right here, just like an M3 grease gun, and the recoil springs come right off. Piece of cake. Also, this rear portion acts as a retainer to keep the upper and lower locked together. Real simple design. Bolt carry, very simple. Just a chunk of metal, has holes all the way through it, 2 of them for the recoil spring guides. Multi-lug rotating bolt, cam pin in on the side, widely copied G36, FN Scar, a whole bunch of guns have essentially copied this thing almost identical. Now, charging handle comes up for the side. It comes out of the side of the receiver in a round cutout once the upper and lower is hinged open and you can get the bolt carrier back that far. When everything's assembled, the charging handle doesn't come back that far, so that it can't come out the side. Also, the two recoil spring guides protrude through the front of the receiver in these two holes, and they lock up in the two corresponding holes in the upper handguard to keep the upper handguard in place. Gas system's busted apart here. Here's your pusher rod, intermediate piece, and then here's your cup, your piston cup. This all comes together, and then gas is siphoned off here, cycles the action, and once it hits a certain point, the excess is bled off. Remember, I was telling you about the magazine does not interchange. Now, this is a modified M16 magazine. They had to grind off the hump to get it in the receiver, but on this side is your slot, which interacts with the AR18 mag catch. Does not interchange, although it looks virtually identical. That's it, field stripped, very widely copied, also very easy to fabricate. You can see why this weapon has been copied all over the world. We're fixing to light this thing up for you, LAV style, ammo courtesy of MagTech. Stay tuned.